The envelope sat on Clara Bennett's pillow like a death sentence. She'd know that cream-colored stationery anywhere. The Hale family crest embossed in silver at the corner. The kind of paper that cost more than her weekly salary. Her hands trembled as she picked it up, and something inside her chest cracked before she even broke the seal. Your services are no longer required. Effective immediately. 8 words. That's all it took to destroy her. Hey there, beautiful souls. Welcome back to the channel. I'm so glad you're here with me today. Before we dive into Clara's heartbreaking story, tell me, where in the world are you watching from? Drop your city in the comments below. And listen, if you haven't already subscribed, please hit that button right now. Trust me, you won't want to miss how this story unfolds. This one's going to break your heart and put it back together again. Now let's get back to Clara, because what happens next will change everything. Clara's legs buckled. She sank onto the edge of her bed in the staff quarters. The small, cozy room that had become her sanctuary over the past 8 months. The room where 5-year-old Emma and Ella would sneak in after bedtime, their identical faces lit with mischief, begging for, just one more story, please, Miss Clara? The room where she'd finally learned to breathe again, after years of surviving instead of living. The room she now had to pack up and leave. But it was the signature at the bottom that made her stomach twist into knots. Alexander Hale. Not Mr. Hale, or the Hale estate. Just his name, slashed across the page in that sharp, unforgiving handwriting that somehow matched the ice in his steel-gray eyes. The same eyes that had looked at her differently 3 nights ago. She'd been in the kitchen late. The twins had finally fallen asleep after a sugar-fueled birthday party that left the entire mansion looking like a glitter bomb had exploded. Clara was washing champagne flutes by hand, the delicate crystal ones that cost more than her car, when she felt him enter the room. Alexander Hale didn't walk into spaces. He claimed them. You didn't have to stay, he'd said, his voice low and rough like aged whiskey. He'd loosened his tie, the top 2 buttons of his shirt undone. Clara had seen him in board meetings, commanding rooms full of powerful men with a single glance. But here, in the dim glow of the kitchen, with his dark hair slightly mussed and exhaustion softening the hard lines of his face, he looked human. Dangerously human. I wanted to, Clara had replied softly, not turning around. If she looked at him, she'd be lost. Emma got frosting in Ella's hair, and Ella somehow managed to stick sequins to the chandelier. The least I could do was clean up. She'd heard him move closer, felt the heat of him behind her. They love you, he'd said, and something in his voice made her hands still in the soapy water. I've never seen them so happy, so alive. Clara's heart had hammered against her ribs. They're wonderful girls. You should be proud. Their mother left when they were 2. The confession came out strangled, raw. Walked out of this house and never looked back. Didn't even fight for custody. Just gone. Clara had finally turned then, and the look on his face nearly undid her. Alexander Hale, the billionaire CEO who'd built an empire before 30, the man Forbes called the Ice King of Manhattan, looked shattered. I don't know how to be what they need, he'd whispered. I give them everything money can buy, but you give them something I can't. What's that? Clara had barely breathed the words. A reason to smile. The air between them had crackled with something dangerous and electric. Alexander had reached out, his fingers brushing a strand of hair from her face, and for one impossible moment, Clara thought he might. But then he'd pulled back like she'd burned him. The walls had slammed back into place so fast she'd almost heard them crash. His jaw had clenched, his eyes going cold. Good night, Miss Bennett, he'd said, formal and distant, before walking out. That was 3 nights ago. Now she held his termination letter, and suddenly it all made sense. He was running. A knock on her door made Clara jump. She quickly swiped at her eyes, folding the letter and tucking it into her pocket. Come in. The door burst open, and 2 identical whirlwinds in princess nightgowns came barreling in. Emma and Ella, with their father's gray eyes and their mother's golden curls, launched themselves at Clara with the fearless abandon of children who'd never been told love was dangerous. Miss Clara, Miss Clara. Emma's small hands grabbed her face. Why are you crying? Did you watch that sad movie again? The one with the dog. We told you not to watch movies with dogs, Ella said solemnly, climbing into Clara's lap. They always make you cry. Clara's heart splintered. How could she tell them? How could she explain that their father, the man who gave them everything except the one thing they truly needed, was sending her away? Girls, I need to talk to you about something. Is it about Daddy? Emma interrupted, her little face scrunching up. He's been extra grumpy. Like, even more than usual. Yesterday he snapped at Mrs. Morrison for putting too much sugar in his coffee. And Mrs. Morrison's been making his coffee for like 100 years. 50 years, Ella corrected. Mrs. Morrison isn't that old. Girls, Clara tried again. Maybe you can make him ungrumpy. Emma's face lit up with hope. You make everyone happy. That's your superpower. Remember when you made Ella stop being scared of thunderstorms? And when you taught me that being left-handed makes me special, not weird. Clara's throat tightened. Sometimes even superpowers have limits, sweetheart. But not yours, Ella said with absolute conviction. She pressed her small hand against Clara's heart. Your superpower is right here. Daddy said so. He said that. Both girls nodded vigorously. We heard him talking to Uncle James on the phone, Emma whispered conspiratorially. He said you had the biggest heart he'd ever seen, and that scared him because… She paused, frowning. Because hearts that big can break easier? I didn't understand that part. Oh, Alexander. Clara pulled both girls close, breathing in the scent of strawberry shampoo and childhood innocence. In 8 months, these two had become more than charges. They'd become her reason for waking up smiling. Her purpose. Her heart. And their father was ripping her away from them. Why do grown-ups make everything so complicated? Ella murmured against Clara's shoulder. Because we forget how to be brave, Clara whispered back. We forget that sometimes the scariest thing is also the most important thing. She didn't know she was talking about herself until the words were out. A heavy footfall in the hallway made all three of them freeze. Clara knew that walk. Purposeful. Commanding. Inevitable. Alexander appeared in the doorway, and the air evacuated the room. He looked wrecked. His shirt was wrinkled, his tie gone, his hair standing up like he'd been running his hands through it. But it was his eyes that gutted her, storm cloud gray and haunted by demons she couldn't name. Girls, his voice came out hoarse. Bed. Now. But Daddy, Emma started. Now. The command was gentle but final. Emma and Ella reluctantly untangled themselves from Clara, but not before Ella whispered in her ear. Don't go anywhere. Promise. Clara couldn't promise. So she just kissed both their foreheads and watched them shuffle past their father, tiny soldiers marching to their doom. When they were gone, Alexander stepped inside and closed the door. The silence was suffocating. You got my letter, he said. Not a question. Yes. Clara stood, lifting her chin. If he was going to destroy her, she'd face it standing. Effective immediately. Very professional. Very you. A muscle jumped in his jaw. It's for the best. For who? The words came out sharper than she intended. For you. Because it's certainly not for Emma and Ella. And it's definitely not for… She stopped herself. Not for who, Clara? He moved closer, and God help her. Even now she wanted to close the distance. Say it. It doesn't matter. It's the only thing that matters. His control cracked, voice rising. Don't you understand? I can't. He stopped, jaw clenched so tight she could see the tendons in his neck. I won't do this again. Do what? Feel something? Care about someone? Get destroyed. The words came out broken. I already burned once. I won't light that match again. And there it was. The truth that had been hiding in his cold dismissals and calculated distance. Alexander Hale wasn't firing her because he didn't care. He was firing her because he cared too much. Clara took a step toward him, heart pounding. What if this time is different? It's not. He backed away like she was poison. It never is. People leave, Clara. They always leave. And I refuse to watch my daughter's hearts break when you inevitably… When I what? Fire flooded her veins. Walk away. Abandon them? Is that really what you think of me? His silence was answer enough. Pain lanced through her chest, sharp and brutal. I would never. That's what she said too. His voice dropped to barely a whisper. My wife. Before she decided 2-year-olds were too much responsibility and a billionaire's mansion was too suffocating. Before she chose her freedom over her family. Oh, Alexander. I'm not her, Clara said fiercely. I'm not whoever broke you so badly you can't even recognize love when it's standing right in front of you. The word hung between them like a live grenade. Alexander's eyes widened, then shuddered. You're fired, Miss Bennet. Please be gone by morning. He turned to leave. They need me, Clara called out desperate. Emma and Ella need me. Alexander stopped at the door, his broad shoulders rigid. When he spoke, his voice was devastated. I know. That's why you have to go. The door closed behind him with a soft click that sounded like the end of everything. What happens next will shatter you. Does Clara leave? Do the twins fight back? And what secret is Alexander really hiding? Drop a comment if you think Clara should stay and fight. I want to know what you would do. And if you're already hooked, I know you are. Clara didn't sleep. How could she, when every corner of this room held memories that now felt like ghosts? The rocking chair by the window where she'd read countless bedtime stories. The small desk where Emma had drawn her a picture labeled "My Favorite Person." The closet where Ella hid during hide and seek, giggling so loudly she always gave herself away. 8 months. That's all it had been. But somehow, these twins had rewoven the fabric of her soul. Before the Hale mansion, Clara had been drifting. 26 years old with a teaching degree she'd never used, bouncing between nanny positions for families who saw her as hired help, not a human being. Her own family was scattered, a mother who'd remarried and moved to Portugal, a brother serving overseas, a father she hadn't spoken to in 3 years after he'd called her dreams of working with children a waste of potential. You could be anything, he'd said, disappointed. And you choose to raise other people's kids? But that was exactly what Clara wanted. To be the person she'd needed when she was young. To give children the unconditional love and presence that she'd craved growing up in a house where affection was transactional and praise was earned, never freely given. Then she'd found the Hales. Or rather, they'd found her. The interview had been unusual from the start. Mrs. Morrison, the head housekeeper, a woman with silver hair and eyes that missed nothing, had been the one to greet her at the door. Mr. Hale is in Tokyo, she'd explained, leading Clara through a mansion that felt more like a museum than a home. He conducts all nanny interviews via video call. You're the 7th candidate this month. 7th? Clara had asked. The twins have a gift for making nannies quit. Mrs. Morrison's lips had twitched. The last one lasted 4 days. The one before her, 2 weeks. Emma and Ella are selective about who gets to stay. Clara had been led to a study with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park. The video screen had flickered to life, and Alexander Hale had appeared, sitting in what looked like a Tokyo hotel room at some ungodly hour, still wearing a suit that probably cost more than Clara's entire year's rent. He'd been all business. Cold. Clinical. Tell me about your qualifications. Clara had rattled off her credentials, watching his face remain impassive. Then, without warning, 2 small faces had appeared in the doorway behind Mrs. Morrison. Is that her? Emma had whispered, not quietly enough. She's pretty, Ella had added. The last one had mean eyes. On the screen, Alexander's jaw had tightened. Girls, I told you to stay in your rooms. But Daddy, we want to meet her. Emma had pleaded. Clara had made a split-second decision. She'd turned away from the screen and knelt down to the twins' level. Hi, I'm Clara. What are your names? I'm Emma, and this is Ella, Emma had announced. We're identical, but I'm older by 3 minutes, so I'm basically in charge. Are not, Ella had protested. Are too, Clara had smiled. You know what I think? I think you're both in charge of different things. Emma, you look like you're in charge of adventures. And Ella, you seem like you're in charge of making sure everyone's okay during those adventures. Am I right? Both girls had stared at her with wide gray eyes, their father's eyes, and then Emma had grabbed her hand. Daddy, we want this one, she declared to the screen. Alexander's voice had cut through, sharp with authority. Ella, let Miss Bennett finish her interview. But she gets it, Ella had interrupted, which Clara later learned was a rare occurrence. Nobody interrupted Alexander Hale. She didn't talk to us like we're babies. She talked to us like we're real people. You are real people, Clara had said gently. See, Emma had turned triumphantly to the screen. She's perfect. Hire her, Daddy. There had been a long pause. Alexander had studied Clara through the screen, his expression unreadable. Then, Miss Bennett, the position is live-in. The hours are irregular. My schedule is unpredictable, and I travel frequently. The twins need someone consistent, reliable, and someone who actually cares about them, Clara had finished quietly. Not just someone collecting a paycheck. Another pause. Then, when can you start? Tomorrow. That had been 8 months ago. 8 months of watching these 2 little girls slowly unfurl like flowers after a long winter. 8 months of coaxing smiles from a man who'd forgotten how to feel joy. 8 months of accidentally falling in love with a family that wasn't hers to keep. And now it was ending. Clara stood and walked to the window. Dawn was breaking over Manhattan, painting the sky in shades of rose and gold. In a few hours, she'd pack her bags, walk out the front door, and vanish from the Hales' lives like she'd never existed. The thought made her physically ill. A soft scratching at her door made her turn. "Come in." Mrs. Morrison entered, carrying a tea tray. The older woman's face was tight with disapproval. "I heard," she said without preamble. "The whole staff has heard. Mr. Hale's assistant delivered the termination paperwork at midnight." "Mrs. Morrison, that man is a fool," Mrs. Morrison said fiercely, setting down the tray with more force than necessary. "I've worked for the Hale family for 30 years. I watched Alexander grow up. I was there when his father died, and he inherited this empire at 23. I was there when Victoria walked out on him and those babies." Clara's chest tightened. Victoria. That was his wife's name. Victoria Russo. Beautiful as a movie star and twice as cold. Mrs. Morrison poured tea with shaking hands. She married Alexander for his money and status. The twins were unexpected. She didn't want children. Didn't want the responsibility. She stayed long enough to fulfill the prenup requirements, then filed for divorce and signed away all parental rights. How could she? Clara couldn't finish the sentence. Some people aren't built for love, dear. Victoria was built for admiration. Mrs. Morrison handed Clara a cup. But Alexander? He loved her with everything he had. And when she left, it broke something in him. He sealed off his heart like a tomb, convinced that everyone would eventually abandon him. "Including me," Clara whispered. "Especially you." Mrs. Morrison's eyes were sad. "Because you matter. The twins adore you. And worse, for him, he's falling in love with you. So in his broken logic, he's protecting himself by destroying the best thing that's happened to this family in years." The words hung in the air like a confession. "I don't know how to fight this," Clara admitted. "He's made up his mind." "Then unmake it." Mrs. Morrison's voice turned steel. "That man needs someone to show him that not everyone leaves. That some people stay and fight, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard." A commotion in the hallway interrupted them. Raised voices, no crying. The twins. Clara and Mrs. Morrison rushed out to find Emma and Ella at Alexander's bedroom door, pounding on the heavy wood with their small fists. "Daddy, please," Emma sobbed. "Please don't make her go. We'll be good, we promise." Ella's voice cracked. "We'll never fight again or make messes or—" The door opened. Alexander stood there in pajama pants and nothing else, his hair wild, his eyes bloodshot. He looked like he'd aged 10 years overnight. When he saw his daughter's tear-stained faces, something crumpled in his expression. "Girls, this isn't." His voice was hoarse. "This isn't about you being good. You're perfect. This is about you being scared," Emma said, with the brutal honesty only children possess. "Mrs. Morrison says you're scared of being happy because Mommy made you sad." Alexander's face went white. His eyes shot to Mrs. Morrison, who lifted her chin defiantly. "Someone needed to tell them the truth, Mr. Hale. Children aren't stupid. We know Mommy left," Ella said quietly. "We know she didn't want us. But Miss Clara isn't Mommy. Miss Clara chooses us every day. She stays when we have nightmares. She makes funny voices when we're sad. She teaches us that being different is okay. She makes you smile, Daddy," Emma added, stepping closer to her father. "We've seen it. When you think nobody's watching, you smile at her. Don't you want to keep smiling?" Alexander's jaw clenched. His hands were shaking. "It's more complicated than—" "No, it's not." Clara's voice cut through, and suddenly all eyes were on her. She'd stepped forward without realizing it, pulled by something stronger than fear. "It's actually very simple. You're terrified of being hurt again, so you're hurting everyone first. That's not protection, Alexander. That's self-destruction." His eyes locked onto hers, and the air between them crackled. "You don't understand. I understand that you're teaching your daughters that love is something to fear instead of something to fight for. I understand that you're so convinced everyone will leave that you're pushing away the people who actually want to stay." Clara's voice trembled but held firm. "I understand that you're breaking their hearts and yours because you've forgotten what it means to be brave." "Brave?" Alexander's laugh was bitter. "Brave is protecting your family from inevitable pain." "No," Clara said softly. "Brave is letting yourself be vulnerable enough to love them." The silence was deafening. Then Ella's small voice. "Are you going to let her go, Daddy?" Alexander looked at his daughter, then at her sister, then at Clara. For one impossible moment, Clara saw the war raging behind his eyes. Fear battling hope, pain battling possibility. Yes, he finally said, and the word destroyed them all. Miss Bennet is leaving today. Emma let out a wail that shattered Clara's heart. Ella simply crumpled, sitting down in the hallway like her legs had given out. Both girls sobbed like the world was ending. Because for them, it was. We don't want her to go. Emma screamed through her tears. We don't want her to go, Daddy, please. Alexander's face twisted with anguish, but he didn't move, didn't comfort them. Just stood there, frozen in his self-imposed prison. And Clara realized, he wasn't just scared of losing her. He was scared of becoming his father. The realization hit her like lightning. She'd heard the stories from Mrs. Morrison. Alexander's father had been a workaholic who'd died of a heart attack at 50, leaving behind a business empire and a son who'd never felt good enough. A man so focused on protecting his wealth that he'd forgotten to protect his relationships. Alexander thought love was a weakness, a liability, something that got you killed, emotionally or literally. And until he faced that fear, nothing Clara said would matter. She knelt down and pulled both twins into her arms. Listen to me, she whispered fiercely. This isn't your fault. None of this is your fault. You are so loved, do you hear me? So loved. Then why are you leaving? Ella hiccuped. Because sometimes grown-ups need time to figure out what they're really afraid of. Clara kissed both their foreheads. But that doesn't mean the love goes away. Love doesn't have a distance limit. She stood, looking directly at Alexander. His face was a mask of controlled devastation. I'll be gone by noon, Clara said quietly. But I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing this for them. Because you're right about one thing. They deserve better. They deserve a father who's brave enough to let people in. And until you become that man, me staying here only enables your fear. She turned and walked back to her room, leaving behind the sound of two little girls crying and one man finally realizing what he'd just lost. Will Alexander realize his mistake before it's too late? What secrets about his past are still hiding in the shadows? And what happens when Clara packs her bags and walks out that door? Comment below, Team Clara or Team Alexander. And don't forget to subscribe. Clara's suitcase sat on her bed, half-packed, when she heard the crash. It came from downstairs, the sound of something expensive shattering, followed by Alexander's roar of rage. Then Mrs. Morrison's sharp voice, then silence. Clara's hands stilled on the sweater she'd been folding. Every instinct screamed at her to go down there, to check on the twins, to make sure everyone was okay. But she wasn't their nanny anymore. She forced herself to keep packing. Clothes, books, the small trinkets Emma and Ella had given her, a painted rock that said best Nanny ever, Emma's spelling, a bracelet made of pasta and glitter, Ella's masterpiece. Each item felt like ripping off a piece of her soul. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Parking garage. Level B3. 5 minutes. Come alone. J. Clara stared at the message. J. The only J she knew in Alexander's circle was James Holden, his best friend and CFO. Why would he? Another text. It's about Alexander. And Victoria. You need to know the truth. Clara's heart hammered. She shouldn't go. She should finish packing and leave this mess behind. But something in those words, you need to know the truth, made her grab her jacket. The parking garage was dim and cold, their footsteps echoing off concrete. James was leaning against a black Mercedes, a man in his early 30s with kind eyes and the perpetually exhausted look of someone who spent too much time cleaning up other people's disasters. Thank you for coming, he said without preamble. I wasn't sure you would. You said this was about Alexander and Victoria. Clara crossed her arms. What truth am I missing? James exhaled slowly. Alexander didn't just lose his wife when Victoria left. He lost his child. Clara's blood turned to ice. What? The twins aren't. James stopped, choosing his words carefully. Emma and Ella are Alexander's nieces. His sister Sophia's daughters. Sophia died in a car accident 3 years ago. She and her husband both. Alexander got custody because he was their godfather and the only family they had left. The world tilted. The twins don't know. They were too young to remember much. Alexander became daddy because that's what they needed. But Victoria knew. She agreed to help raise them, convinced Alexander it would be good for their image. James's voice dripped with disgust. Then she got pregnant with Alexander's actual child. And everything changed. Clara's knees nearly gave out. He has another child? Had. The word came out broken. Victoria miscarried at 5 months. It destroyed her. Not emotionally, but because she saw it as her ticket out being revoked. She'd planned to divorce him, take the baby and a massive settlement, and disappear. When she lost the pregnancy, she blamed Alexander. Blamed the stress of raising the twins. She left 3 weeks later. Oh my God! Clara's hand covered her mouth. Alexander blamed himself too. Thought he'd been so focused on the twins that he'd neglected Victoria, caused the miscarriage. He's carried that guilt for 3 years. James stepped closer. He's convinced that anyone he loves either dies or leaves. His father, his sister, his wife, his unborn child. So when he realized he was falling for you, he pushed me away before I could be added to that list. Clara finished, everything suddenly making horrifying sense. He's not firing you because he doesn't care, Clara. He's firing you because he cares so much it terrifies him. James pulled out an envelope. This arrived this morning. From Victoria's lawyer. Clara took it with shaking hands. Inside was a legal document. She scanned the words, and her blood ran cold. Petition for custody review. Victoria Russo Hale. Requests visitation rights. Alleges unsafe environment. She wants the twins back, Clara whispered. She wants Alexander's money. She's engaged to some Italian count who's broke. Her lawyers are claiming that Alexander is an unfit parent, emotionally unavailable, always working, cycling through nannies. James's jaw clenched. And by firing you, Alexander just handed them the proof they need. The implications crashed over Clara like a wave. If the twins lose him, they lose everything. Again, James grabbed her shoulders. You're the only stable thing in their lives right now. The only evidence that Alexander can provide a loving home. If you leave, Victoria's lawyers will use it to prove he's incapable of keeping anyone around. Why are you telling me this? Clara's mind was racing. Why not tell Alexander to keep me on? Because I already tried. He refuses. Says he won't use you as a pawn in a custody battle. James's eyes were desperate. But Clara, those girls need you. And whether Alexander admits it or not, he needs you too. If Victoria gets custody, it will destroy them all. Clara's mind flashed to Emma and Ella's tear-stained faces. To Alexander standing frozen in his doorway, choosing fear over love. To the family she'd built over 8 months, now crumbling to dust. What do you need me to do? She heard herself ask. James's expression was grim. Stay, fight, and be ready for Victoria to come here herself. Because according to my sources, she's landing in New York tonight. Clara's blood turned to ice. Tonight, she's planning a surprise visit. Wants to see the twins in their natural environment for the custody evaluation. James handed her another paper. And Clara, she knows about you. She's going to use your termination as proof that Alexander's home life is chaotic. Unless I'm still here, Clara said slowly, the plan forming. Unless the nanny is still in place, proving stability. Exactly. But you'd have to convince Alexander to let you stay. And we both know how stubborn he is. Clara thought of Emma's words. Don't you want to keep smiling, Daddy? She thought of Alexander's broken confession. I won't do this again. And she thought of what Mrs. Morrison had said. Some people stay and fight, even when it's hard. I need to tell him about Victoria, Clara said firmly. He needs to know what's coming. He'll push you away harder. Then I'll push back harder. Clara's voice was steel. Those girls aren't losing another parent. Not on my watch. She turned and ran back toward the mansion, her heart pounding with purpose and terror in equal measure. Behind her, James called out, Clara, there's one more thing you should know. But she was already gone, racing against time and a ghost from the past who was about to destroy everything. What she didn't know was that Victoria Russo wasn't coming alone. And the secret she was bringing would change everything. Victoria is coming. Secrets are about to explode. And Clara just made a choice that will either save this family or destroy it completely. Drop a comment. Should Clara tell Alexander everything or keep Victoria's arrival a secret? Clara burst through the mansion's front door and collided directly into Alexander's chest. He caught her by the shoulders, steadying her. For a moment they were frozen, his hands warm through her jacket, his face inches from hers, his breath catching like he'd been running too. Clara, what? We need to talk. Now. She grabbed his wrist and pulled him toward his study, not caring about protocol or boundaries anymore. The time for careful distance was over. Alexander followed, too stunned to protest. Once inside, Clara shut the door and locked it. "Victoria is coming here," she said without preamble. "Tonight. She's filing for custody of the twins." The color drained from Alexander's face. "How do you?" "James told me everything. The miscarriage. The twins being your nieces. All of it." Clara's voice shook but held firm. "And she's using my termination as evidence that you're unfit. That you can't maintain a stable home environment." Alexander's jaw clenched so hard she heard his teeth grind. James had no right. He had every right. "Those girls are about to lose you because you're too scared to let anyone help." Clara stepped closer, forcing him to look at her. "Victoria is going to walk through that door and tear apart everything you've built with Emma and Ella. Unless we stop her." "We?" Alexander's laugh was bitter. "There is no we, Clara. I fired you, remember? Then unfire me." "I can't." "Yes, you can." Clara's voice cracked. "For once in your life, stop protecting yourself and protect them. I know you're terrified. I know Victoria destroyed you. I know you think everyone you love either dies or leaves. But Alexander, I'm standing right here, begging you to let me stay, and you're still pushing me away. Because I can't watch you leave." The words exploded out of him, raw and desperate. "Don't you understand? Everyone leaves. My father worked himself to death. Sophia died in that crash. Victoria walked out. My child," his voice broke. "My child never even got a chance to live. So yes, I'm scared. I'm terrified. Because when you finally realize that this life, this mess, this broken family isn't worth staying for, it will destroy me." Clara's heart shattered and mended simultaneously. "What if I don't leave? Everyone says that. What if I mean it?" She stepped closer, close enough to feel the heat radiating off him. "What if I'm not Victoria? What if I'm the person who stays through the custody battle and the hard days and the moments when you're impossible? What if I'm already in love with those girls?" Her voice dropped to a whisper. "And their father?" The air left the room. Alexander stared at her like she'd spoken a foreign language. "You can't." "I can. I do. I am." Clara's hands trembled. "And I'm not leaving them. I'm not leaving you. Not now, not when Victoria shows up, not ever. So you have a choice, Alexander. You can fire me and watch your family fall apart, or you can let me stay and fight beside you." For a long moment, Alexander said nothing. Then, "If you stay, she'll come after you too. Victoria destroys anything that threatens her control. She'll dig into your past, find your weaknesses, use them against us. Let her try. Clara, I'm not afraid of her." Clara lifted her chin. "Are you?" The question hung between them like a challenge. Alexander's eyes searched hers, looking for cracks, for lies, for the inevitable betrayal he'd convinced himself was coming. Instead, he found steel. "I'm afraid of losing you," he admitted, so quietly she almost didn't hear it. "Then stop pushing me away." Before Alexander could respond, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and his face went ashen. "She's here." Victoria just pulled up to the gate. Clara's heart hammered. "Already," James said tonight. She moved up her timeline. Alexander's mind was clearly racing. "The twins are in the playroom with Mrs. Morrison. If Victoria sees you with packed bags, then we unpack them." Clara grabbed his hand. "Right now. Together." Alexander looked at their joined hands like they were both salvation and damnation. Then he squeezed back. "Okay," he breathed. "Okay. But Clara, when this is over, we'll figure out what comes next. One crisis at a time." She managed a shaky smile. "Now come on. We have about 5 minutes to make it look like you didn't just fire the best nanny your daughters ever had." They ran upstairs, and for the next 4 minutes, they became a team. Alexander grabbed her suitcase while Clara threw clothes back into drawers. He hung her dresses while she scattered her books across the nightstand. A strange, frantic dance of two people trying to rewrite history before it became evidence. "Does this look natural?" Alexander asked, holding up a sweater. "You're folding it like you're preparing for military inspection." Clara laughed despite the insanity. "Just throw it on the chair." "I'm not that neat." Something flickered in his eyes. Affection, maybe, or the ghost of humor. "Good to know." The doorbell chimed. Long, insistent, imperious. They froze. "Showtime," Clara whispered. Alexander's hand found hers again. "Whatever happens, whatever she says. We're in this together," Clara finished. They walked downstairs side by side. Mrs. Morrison was already at the door, her face a mask of polite hostility. Through the ornate glass, Clara could see a woman who looked like she'd stepped out of a fashion magazine. Tall, blonde, beautiful in that sharp, untouchable way. Victoria Russo. And beside her stood a man Clara had never seen before. Tall, dark-haired, with calculating eyes and an expensive suit that screamed old money. "Who's that with her?" Clara whispered. Alexander's face went rigid. "That's Dante Marchetti, her fiancé." He paused. "And my former business rival. The man who tried to destroy my company 5 years ago." Clara's blood ran cold. "This isn't just about the twins." "No," Alexander said grimly. "This is about revenge." Mrs. Morrison opened the door. Victoria swept in like she owned the place, her eyes immediately landing on Alexander. Her smile was poisonous honey. "Alexander, darling. Did you miss me?" Then her gaze shifted to Clara, still standing beside Alexander, their hands subtly touching. Victoria's smile sharpened into something predatory. "And who is this?" Clara felt Alexander tense beside her, but before he could speak, she stepped forward and extended her hand with a confidence she didn't feel. "Clara Bennett, the nanny. I've been caring for Emma and Ella for the past 8 months." She smiled warmly. "You must be their mother. The girls have mentioned you." It was a perfect lie, and they both knew it. The twins never mentioned Victoria, but the implication was clear. "I'm present." "You're not." Victoria's eyes glittered with malice as she took Clara's hand. Her grip was cold and crushing. "How lovely. And how convenient that you're here. I'd heard Alexander was having trouble keeping staff." "Only because he has very high standards," Clara replied smoothly. "He wants the best for Emma and Ella, as any good parent would." The barb landed. Victoria's smile tightened. Dante stepped forward, his voice smooth as silk. "Alexander, it's been a long time." "Not long enough," Alexander replied coldly. "What are you doing in my home, Marchetti?" "Supporting my fiancé's parental rights." Dante's smile was shark-like. "Surely you understand the importance of family?" Before Alexander could respond, 2 small voices called out from upstairs. "Daddy! Miss Clara! Come see what we built." Emma and Ella appeared at the top of the stairs, faces bright with excitement. Then they saw Victoria, and both girls froze. "Hello, my darlings," Victoria cooed, her voice saccharine. "Don't you remember Mommy?" Ella stepped back, grabbing Emma's hand. Emma's face scrunched in confusion. You're the lady from the picture. The one who went away." Victoria's mask cracked for just a second, a flash of something ugly beneath the beauty. "Mommy didn't go away, sweetheart. Mommy had to leave for a little while. But now I'm back, and I want to take you on an adventure." "We don't want to go," Ella said quietly, moving closer to the stairs railing. "We want to stay with Daddy and Miss Clara." "Yeah," Emma added, her voice growing stronger. "This is our home. You left us." The accusation hung in the air like smoke. Victoria's composure shattered. "Alexander, you've turned them against me." "No one turned them against you," Clara cut in firmly but gently. "Children remember who shows up. And you haven't." Victoria's eyes blazed. "You have no right to speak to me about my children." "They're not your children," Alexander said, his voice lethal and quiet. "You signed away your rights 3 years ago. Legally, you're nothing to them. We'll see what the judge says about that." Dante pulled out a folder. "We have documentation of your unstable household. 17 nannies in 3 years. Your obsessive work schedule. Your emotional unavailability. And this morning's termination of Miss Bennett here, which we have on record, proves you're still incapable of maintaining appropriate childcare." Clara felt Alexander tense like a loaded gun. She made a split-second decision. "Actually," Clara said cheerfully, pulling out her phone and typing rapidly, "about that termination." She hit send, and Alexander's phone immediately buzzed. "Mr. Hale just sent me a new contract. Extended employment with increased responsibilities. I'm not going anywhere." She showed them her phone screen. A fake email she'd just sent to herself from a burner account she'd created in 30 seconds flat. It wouldn't hold up under scrutiny, but it would buy them time. Alexander caught on immediately. "That's correct. I was renegotiating Miss Bennett's terms. The previous contract was insufficient for her level of dedication." Victoria's face twisted with fury. "You're lying." "Prove it," Clara said sweetly. The standoff crackled with tension. Dante leaned close to Victoria, whispering urgently. Victoria's eyes never left Clara's face, and in them, Clara saw pure hatred. "This isn't over," Victoria hissed. "The custody evaluation is in 3 days. And when I'm done, you'll lose everything, Alexander. The twins, your reputation, maybe even your company. Dante and I have been planning this for months. She spun on her heel and stalked out, Dante following with a satisfied smirk. The door slammed. Silence crashed over them like a wave. Then Emma's small voice from upstairs. Is she really going to take us away? Clara and Alexander looked at each other, the weight of the war ahead settling on their shoulders. Not if we can help it, Alexander said quietly. Then to Clara. Thank you. That was insane, reckless, possibly illegal. Clara's laugh was shaky. Perfect, Alexander finished. His hand found hers again. You're perfect. And despite everything, the threat, the fear, the impossible odds, Clara felt something bloom in her chest that felt dangerously like hope. Victoria and Dante are plotting revenge. The custody evaluation is in 3 days. And Clara just gambled everything on a fake email. Comment if you think they can win this fight. And subscribe. The twins were finally asleep, exhausted from tears and confusion. Clara sat in the hallway between their rooms, unwilling to leave them even for a moment. That's where Alexander found her, 2 hours after Victoria's departure, holding a bottle of wine and 2 glasses. Mrs. Morrison's orders, he said, settling down beside her on the carpet. She says we need to fortify ourselves for the battle ahead. Her words, not mine. Clara accepted a glass with a shaky laugh. I like how she thinks. They sat in silence for a moment, shoulders touching, the weight of the day pressing down on them. Then Alexander spoke, his voice raw. I need to tell you something. About why Victoria really left. Clara turned to face him. James told me about the miscarriage. There wasn't a miscarriage. Alexander's words hung in the air like a bomb. That was the story we told everyone. The truth is worse. Clara's heart stuttered. Alexander. Victoria was never pregnant. He drained his glass in one swallow. She faked it. The ultrasounds, the doctor's appointments, everything. She had a friend who was a physician, forged documents. For 6 months, I believed I was going to be a father. Oh my God, Clara whispered. I was terrified and thrilled at the same time. The twins were 3, still grieving their real parents in ways I couldn't understand. I thought a new baby might help us all heal, give us a fresh start. His laugh was hollow. I was an idiot. What happened? I came home early one day and found her burning papers in the fireplace. Medical records, fake prescriptions, emails with her accomplice. When I confronted her, she laughed. Alexander's voice cracked. She said the pregnancy was insurance. She knew I wanted a biological child, so she gave me hope while she bled my accounts dry and transferred assets to offshore companies. By the time I discovered what she'd done, she'd stolen $40 million. Clara's hand flew to her mouth. Why didn't you prosecute? Because she had leverage. Photos of the twins during their worst moments. Emma having a meltdown, Ella crying for her dead mother, me losing my temper during a particularly hard night. She threatened to leak them to the press, claim I was abusive, destroy any chance I had of keeping custody. His fists clenched. So I paid her off. Another $60 million to go away quietly and sign away her parental rights. I thought it was over. But she's broke now, Clara said slowly, understanding dawning. Whatever money she stole is gone. And Dante? Dante went bankrupt 2 years ago. His family's fortune evaporated in bad investments. Alexander's eyes were hard. This isn't about maternal instincts. This is about Victoria needing another payday, and Dante wanting revenge for me destroying his company. The custody suit is a shakedown, Clara breathed. They're going to drag me through court, leak those photos anyway, paint me as an unfit parent. Then they'll offer to settle, for another $100 million probably. If I refuse, they take the twins and ransom them back piece by piece. Alexander's voice broke. And Clara, I can't let them win. Those girls are all I have left of Sophia. They're my family. If Victoria takes them. Clara grabbed his face, forcing him to look at her. She won't. We won't let her. How? She's thought of everything. The fake termination letter. She probably had someone inside my company feeding her information. The timing of her arrival, the documentation, all of it. Alexander's eyes were wild with desperation. And in 3 days, a court-appointed evaluator is going to walk through that door and judge whether I'm fit to be their father. Then we make sure they see the truth. Clara's mind was racing. We show them a home full of love, stability, and 2 little girls who are thriving. We show them you. What if that's not enough? Then we fight dirty. Clara pulled out her phone. You're not the only one with resources, Alexander. I may just be a nanny, but I have something Victoria doesn't. What's that? The truth. And people who actually care about those girls. She started typing furiously. Emma and Ella's teachers, their pediatrician, Mrs. Morrison, James. We get testimonials from everyone who's seen how much you love them. We document everything. And we find out exactly what Victoria and Dante are planning. Alexander stared at her like she'd grown wings. You're serious. Deadly serious. You said Victoria steals and manipulates? Well, two can play that game. Clara's eyes flashed. I'm going to find out everything about her and Dante. Their finances, their relationship, their real motivations. And when that evaluator shows up, we're going to have ammunition. Clara, if she finds out you're digging, what's she going to do? Fire me? I'm already supposedly fired and rehired in the same day. Clara's smile was fierce. Besides, I'm not scared of her. I'm scared of what happens if we do nothing. Alexander's hand came up to cup her cheek, his thumb tracing her jawline. When did you become so fearless? When I fell in love with a man too stubborn to see he's worth fighting for, Clara said softly. And two little girls who deserve better than Victoria's manipulation. The air between them crackled with electricity. Alexander's eyes dropped to her lips, and Clara's breath caught. If we do this, if we really fight back, there's no going back, Alexander warned. Victoria will come after you with everything she has. Your past, your reputation, anything she can use as a weapon. Then she'll be disappointed. My past is boring and my reputation is squeaky clean. Clara leaned closer. Stop trying to protect me from the fight, Alexander. I'm already in it. I'm trying to protect you from me, he whispered, his forehead touching hers. Because if we cross this line, if I let myself have you, I won't be able to let go. And if you leave? I'm not leaving. Clara's hand covered his heart, feeling it thunder beneath her palm. How many times do I have to say it? I'm not Victoria. I'm not your father who worked himself to death. I'm not Sophia who died. I'm just Clara, and I'm choosing to stay. Every single day, I'm choosing this family. I'm choosing you. Alexander's control shattered. He kissed her like a drowning man finding air. Desperate and reverent and terrified and hopeful all at once. Clara melted into him, tasting wine and promises and the future they were fighting for. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, Alexander pressed his forehead to hers. I don't deserve you. Lucky for you, I don't care what you think you deserve. Clara smiled. Now, are we going to sit here making out in the hallway, or are we going to take down Victoria and Dante? Alexander laughed. Really laughed, for the first time since Victoria had walked through his door. Can't we do both? Focus, Hale. But Clara was smiling too. We have 3 days to build an airtight case. Where do we start? Alexander pulled out his phone, his expression shifting into something sharp and calculating. We start by calling in favors. I didn't become a billionaire by playing nice, Clara. If Victoria wants war, she's about to remember why people call me the Ice King. That's the spirit. Clara stood, pulling him up with her. Now come on. We have battle plans to make, Anne. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number made her blood freeze. Cute show you put on today. But I know about the fake contract. And I know about your little secret too, Clara. The one you've been hiding. Talk soon. V. Clara's hands trembled. Alexander saw her face and grabbed the phone. What secret? He demanded. Clara, what is she talking about? Clara's mouth went dry. Because there was something Victoria could use against her. Something she'd buried so deep, she'd almost convinced herself it didn't exist. My father, she whispered. He's in prison. White-collar crime. Embezzlement from his law firm. He's been there for 4 years. She looked up at Alexander, terrified. I changed my last name legally, cut all ties. Nobody knows. But if Victoria tells the evaluator that the nanny comes from a family of criminals, it'll destroy our case, Alexander finished grimly. They stood there, the kiss still warm on their lips, the hope that had bloomed between them suddenly threatened by ghosts from Clara's past. I should leave, Clara said, the words tasting like ash. Before she can use me against you. No. Alexander grabbed her hands. No more running. Not from me, not from her. We face this together. But Alexander. Together, he repeated fiercely. Victoria made one mistake. She thinks everyone is like her, willing to abandon the people they love when things get hard. But that's not us. That's never going to be us. Clara's eyes filled with tears. You still trust me? Even knowing. Especially knowing. Alexander pulled her close. You're not your father, Clara. Just like I'm not mine. We're the people we choose to be. And I choose to stand with you. A door opened behind them. Mrs. Morrison appeared, her face pale. Mr. Hale, you need to see this. It's on the news. They rushed downstairs to find James already there, his laptop open to a celebrity gossip site. The headline made Clara's stomach drop. Billionaire's secret. Alexander Hale's nanny from criminal family? Exclusive photos inside. Beneath it, photos of Clara with her father before his arrest. Photos of her visiting him in prison 2 years ago. The one time she'd gone, the visit where he'd screamed at her for abandoning him, where she'd finally cut ties completely. Victoria had moved faster than they'd anticipated. How did she get these so quickly? Clara breathed. James's face was grim. She didn't. She's had them for weeks. She's been planning this entire thing long before she showed up today. The room spun. This wasn't just about money or revenge. Victoria had orchestrated every move, anticipated every response. She'd let them think they had time, let them think they could fight back. But she'd already won. Alexander's phone rang. His lawyer, voice tense. Alexander, the evaluator just called. They've moved up the home visit. They're coming tomorrow morning instead of 3 days from now. And they're bringing Victoria's legal team with them. Clara watched Alexander's face go pale, watched the hope drain from his eyes. Tomorrow. They had until tomorrow to save his family. And Victoria had just ensured they'd fail. The war just went nuclear. Victoria has Clara's darkest secret. The evaluator is coming in hours, not days. And everything Alexander loves is about to be destroyed. The clock read 3:47 a.m. when Clara found Alexander in his office, surrounded by lawyers' briefs and half-empty coffee cups. He looked like he'd aged a decade in 6 hours. You should be sleeping, he said without looking up. So should you. Clara set down a fresh cup of coffee and perched on the edge of his desk. Any luck? Alexander's laugh was bitter. My lawyers say the news story alone is enough to sway the evaluator. A nanny with a criminal father, hired by a man who can't maintain stable childcare? Victoria's team will paint me as reckless at best, negligent at worst. So we explain. Explain what? That I didn't know about your father because I never did a deep background check? That makes me look incompetent. He finally looked at her, and the defeat in his eyes broke her heart. Or that I did know and hired you anyway. That makes me look dangerously trusting. Clara's throat tightened. This is my fault. If I'd told you from the beginning. Don't. Alexander stood, closing the distance between them. Don't you dare blame yourself for Victoria's manipulation. She would have found something else, some other weapon. But now the twins are going to lose you because of me. No. His hands framed her face. If they lose me, it's because the system is broken and Victoria is a monster. Not because you loved your father enough to visit him once. Not because you're a good person who made hard choices. Tears spilled down Clara's cheeks. I can't watch her take them from you. I can't. A crash from upstairs made them both freeze. Then Emma's scream, high and terrified. Daddy! Daddy, come quick. They ran, taking stairs 3 at a time. Emma's room. The door was open, the window shattered, glass covering the floor. Emma stood in the middle of the destruction in her nightgown, sobbing hysterically. Where's Ella? Alexander's voice was pure ice and terror. She's gone. Emma wailed. A man came through the window and took her. He said to tell you Victoria wants to talk. Clara's world tilted. Mrs. Morrison appeared in the hallway, phone already to her ear, calling the police. James burst from the guest room still in his pajamas. But all Clara could see was Alexander's face. The absolute devastation as he realized his worst nightmare had come true. They took my daughter, he whispered. Then louder, rage and agony twisting his voice. They took Ella. His phone buzzed. A video message. With shaking hands, he opened it. Ella appeared on screen, sitting in what looked like a hotel room. She wasn't crying, but her little face was pale with fear. Victoria sat beside her, all false concern and poisonous sweetness. Say hello to Daddy, sweetheart, Victoria cooed. Daddy. Ella's voice was so small. I want to come home. Soon, darling. Very soon. Victoria looked directly at the camera, her smile vicious. Alexander, let's talk terms. You have until the evaluator arrives at 9 a.m. to make a choice. Sign over full custody to me, along with a $200 million settlement. or Ella stays with mommy permanently. And trust me, after what the press has already printed about your criminal nanny, the courts will be very sympathetic to a mother rescuing her daughter from an unsafe home. You can't do this, Alexander breathed. This is kidnapping. This is a mother taking her daughter for a sleepover. No court will see it otherwise. Victoria's smile widened. Especially when I explained that I feared for her safety. That I had to act quickly to protect her. See you at 9 a.m., darling. Come alone, or you'll never see Ella again. The video ended. Alexander stood frozen, the phone slipping from his hands. Clara caught it, her mind racing through the horror. Victoria had crossed a line no one had anticipated. She hadn't just played dirty, she'd stolen a child. We call the FBI, James said immediately. This is kidnapping across state lines if they took her out of New York. No, Alexander's voice was dead. By the time they mobilize, Victoria will have disappeared with Ella. She probably has a private jet waiting, fake passports, everything planned. She's been orchestrating this for months. He looked at Clara, his eyes hollow. She wins. I have to give her what she wants. No, Clara said fiercely. Alexander, you can't. I have to. He grabbed her shoulders. Don't you understand? Nothing matters without them. Not the money, not the company, nothing. If I lose Ella, his voice cracked. I can't lose another person I love. I can't. Clara's heart shattered as she watched the strongest man she'd ever known crumble. This was Victoria's true genius. She hadn't just threatened Alexander's custody or reputation. She'd ripped away his child and proven that everything he feared was true. That people could be taken from him in an instant. That love was weakness. That he'd been right to push Clara away all along. There has to be another way, Clara whispered. There isn't. Alexander pulled back, his face shuddering into that cold mask she'd seen the first day they met. The Ice King returning, walls slamming back into place. I'm calling my lawyers. I'm giving Victoria everything she wants. And then, he looked at Clara, and the devastation in his eyes destroyed her. Then you need to leave. What? No. Clara, this is over. Victoria proved her point. She'll keep coming after anyone I care about. First Ella, then Emma, then. He couldn't finish. I won't let her hurt you too. So you're pushing me away again. Even now. I'm protecting you. His voice broke. Because I love you, and that means Victoria will destroy you just to hurt me. Don't you see? Everyone I love becomes a target. My father, Sophia, the baby that never was, and now. He gestured helplessly. Now Ella's gone because Victoria knew it would break me. And she's right. Clara felt her own walls starting to crumble. So that's it. You give up. You let her win. I let my daughter come home safely. That's not giving up. That's being a father. It's being a coward. The words exploded out of Clara before she could stop them. You're so convinced that loving people means losing them that you won't even fight. You think signing over custody will keep them safe? Victoria will bleed you dry for the rest of your life. And those girls will grow up knowing their father chose money over fighting for them. Alexander's face went white. How dare you? Someone has to say it. Tears streamed down Clara's face. I love those girls like they're my own. I love you even though you're impossible and self-destructive and terrified of your own heart. But I won't stand here and watch you surrender to the woman who's been manipulating you for years. Then leave, Alexander roared. Get out. You're fired, for real this time. Pack your bags and go, because I don't need you here when I sign away everything I've worked for. The words hung in the air like poison. Clara stared at him, this man she'd fallen impossibly in love with, watching him destroy himself piece by piece. She thought about staying, fighting, refusing to go. But Emma appeared in the doorway, her face streaked with tears, and Clara realized. Her presence was making everything worse. Victoria had used her as ammunition. The press would continue to circle. And Alexander, broken, devastated Alexander, needed to focus on getting Ella back, not on protecting Clara from the fallout. Maybe he was right. Maybe love did make people targets. Maybe she should go. Fine, Clara whispered, her heart shattering into dust. I'll go. But Alexander. She waited until he looked at her. When this is over, when you've given Victoria everything and you're left with nothing but your fear and your walls, remember this. I wanted to stay. I wanted to fight. You're the one who chose to be alone. She turned and walked to her room, every step feeling like betrayal. Behind her, she heard Emma's quiet sobs and Mrs. Morrison's murmured comfort and Alexander's ragged breathing as he called his lawyers. Clara packed her bags for the second time in 24 hours. But this time, there was no last-minute rescue. No revelations to stop her. Just the crushing weight of defeat and the knowledge that Victoria had won without firing a final shot. She'd simply proven that Alexander's worst fears were true. Downstairs, dawn was breaking. In 3 hours, the evaluator would arrive to find a home in chaos, a missing child, and a billionaire signing away his rights to the woman who'd orchestrated it all. Clara paused at the front door, looking back at the mansion that had become her home. Somewhere upstairs, Emma was crying. Somewhere in the city, Ella was afraid. And somewhere in his office, Alexander was choosing isolation over love. Mrs. Morrison appeared in the hallway. "Don't go, child. Please. He doesn't want me here. He's terrified." The older woman's eyes were wet. And when men are terrified, they push away the very people who could save them. "I can't save someone who won't let me." Clara's voice broke. "Tell Emma and Ella I love them. Tell them." She couldn't finish. She walked out the door just as the sun rose over Manhattan, leaving behind the family she'd fought for, and the man she'd fallen for, and the life that had felt, for 8 perfect months, like it belonged to her. The door closed behind her with a soft click that sounded like the end of everything. And in his office, Alexander Hale sat alone in the growing light, surrounded by papers that would sign away his daughters, and realized too late that Clara had been right. He'd chosen his fear over his family. And now he'd lost them all. Emma and Ella's world is shattered. Alexander has surrendered. Clara is gone. And Victoria has won. But sometimes, the darkest hour comes right before dawn. Drop a comment if you believe in comebacks. Clara made it 3 blocks before she stopped walking. She stood on the corner of 5th Avenue as the city woke around her, her suitcase at her feet, and realized something that made her blood run cold with clarity. She was doing exactly what Victoria wanted. Leaving, giving up, proving Alexander right that everyone eventually abandons him. "No," Clara said aloud, causing a passing jogger to look at her strangely. "No, no, no." She pulled out her phone and called James. He answered on the first ring, voice hoarse. "Clara, if you're calling to say goodbye, I need you to trace that video Victoria sent. Can you do it?" Silence. Then, "What?" "The video of Ella. Victoria's too arrogant to have been careful. She wants Alexander to see it, which means she sent it from a device that can be traced." Clara's mind was racing, pieces clicking together. "James, you're a CFO. You investigate financial crimes. Tell me you have contacts who can track a phone signal." Yes, but Clara, even if we find her, what then? Victoria has lawyers, resources. Victoria has Ella. And I'm not leaving that little girl in the hands of a woman who faked a pregnancy to steal millions." Clara's voice turned to steel. "Now are you going to help me, or do I do this alone?" A pause. Then James's voice came back sharp and focused. "I'm sending you an address. My friend owes me a favor. He's former FBI, now private security. He can trace the video. How fast can you get to Brooklyn?" 20 minutes. Clara was already hailing a cab. "Clara." James's voice softened. "Alexander will never forgive me for helping you. Then it's a good thing I'm not asking for his permission." She climbed into the cab. "Send me that address. And James, don't tell him what we're doing. Not yet." She hung up and stared at her phone. Then she did something she swore she'd never do again. She called her father's prison. Back at the mansion, Alexander sat across from his lawyers as they laid out the surrender documents. "Sign here, here, and here. $200 million. Full custody to Victoria. Visitation rights to be determined at a later date." Which meant never. Emma sat on the stairs, watching through the banister. Mrs. Morrison stood beside her, one hand on the girl's shoulder. "Mr. Hale," one of the lawyers said gently, "are you certain this is what you want?" Alexander looked at the papers, at the words that would erase his family, at the choice between money and his daughter. It wasn't a choice at all. "Where do I sign?" Before the lawyer could respond, Emma's voice rang out, small but fierce. "Don't do it, Daddy." Everyone turned. Emma stood up, her face blotchy from crying, but her jaw set with determination that reminded Alexander painfully of Clara. "Sweetheart, I have to." "No, you don't." Emma walked down the stairs. Miss Clara said that brave isn't giving up when things are hard. Brave is fighting even when you're scared. "Emma, Ella needs you to fight for her. Not by her back. Fight for her." Emma's voice cracked. "And Miss Clara needs you to fight too. Because she loves us, and you made her leave. And that was mean, Daddy. That was really, really mean. Alexander felt something crack in his chest. I was trying to protect her. You were being scared. Emma's tears returned. Like when I'm scared of the dark and I hide under my covers instead of turning on the light. You're hiding, Daddy. And hiding doesn't make the scary things go away. Out of the mouths of babes. Alexander stared at his 5-year-old daughter. His niece, his heart, his responsibility, and saw Clara in every word. Saw 8 months of unconditional love and patience reflected back at him. Saw what he'd been too afraid to see before. That sometimes the bravest thing you can do is let people love you. Mrs. Morrison, Alexander said quietly. Where did Clara go? I don't know, sir. She didn't say. Alexander pulled out his phone and called her. It went straight to voicemail. He tried again. Nothing. James. He'd call James. But when he dialed, James's phone was off too. A terrible suspicion began to form. No, Alexander breathed. She wouldn't. Wouldn't what, Mr. Hale? Mrs. Morrison asked. She's going after Victoria herself. Clara stood in a nondescript Brooklyn building, watching a man named Rick Chin, former FBI cybercrimes unit, work magic on 3 computer screens. Got it, Rick said, pointing at a map. The video was sent from a phone registered to a shell company, but the tower ping puts it here. He circled a location in Manhattan, the Peninsula Hotel. Penthouse suite, booked under Dante Marchetti's name. You're sure? Lady, I tracked down hackers for 15 years. I'm sure. Rick looked at her seriously. But what are you going to do with this information? You can't just walk in there. Watch me. Clara was already heading for the door. Her phone rang. A number she hadn't seen in 4 years. She answered. Clara. Her father's voice was rough, aged. You called the prison. Said it was an emergency. I need a lawyer. The best one you know. Clara hailed another cab. Someone who specializes in kidnapping cases and isn't afraid of going up against billionaires. Her father was quiet for a long moment. You're in trouble. No, I'm in love. With a family that's being torn apart by a woman who faked a pregnancy to steal money and is now holding a 5-year-old hostage. Clara took a breath. Dad, I know we haven't talked in years. I know you're angry at me for cutting you off. But I'm asking you now, help me save them. Another pause. Then, you sound like your mother. She was fearless too. A rustling of papers. Write down this name, Patricia Alvarez. She's a pit bull in a pantsuit. Tell her Marcus Bennett sent you. She'll know what it means. And Clara. Yeah. Whatever you're about to do, be careful. People who steal from billionaires don't play nice. Neither do nannies who love their kids. Clara hung up and dialed the new number. Patricia Alvarez answered with, Who died? Nobody yet. But a woman named Victoria Russo kidnapped a child and is blackmailing the father for $200 million in custody. Can you help? Can I? Patricia laughed, sharp and delighted. Honey, I eat cases like this for breakfast. Where are you? Clara told her everything as the cab sped toward Manhattan. Patricia listened, asked razor-sharp questions, and by the time they pulled up to the Peninsula Hotel, she'd already filed emergency motions and alerted the police. But Clara, Patricia warned, the police will take hours to mobilize and we need evidence. You have a video of the child that proves she's there, but not proof of coercion or that Victoria's holding her against her will. Then I'll get proof. Clara stared up at the hotel. I'm going in. That's insane. That's Tuesday. Clara ended the call and walked into the lobby like she belonged there. The elevator ride to the penthouse felt like descending into hell. When the doors opened, Clara found herself facing a door with a security keypad. She had no plan, no backup, just rage and love and the absolute certainty that she wasn't leaving without Ella. She knocked. Dante opened the door, his smile predatory. Well, the nanny. Victoria said you'd probably show up. Where's Ella? Safe. Comfortable. Probably having more fun with Victoria than she ever had in that mausoleum Alexander calls a home. Dante leaned against the doorframe. You should go, Miss Bennett. This doesn't concern you anymore. Everything about those girls concerns me. Clara stepped forward. Let me see her. Let me know she's okay, and I'll leave. Dante studied her, calculating. Then he stepped aside. 5 minutes. Victoria's in the shower anyway. Clara walked into the suite, her heart pounding. The living room was opulent and cold. And there, sitting on a white couch with a tablet, was Ella. The little girl looked up, and her face transformed. Miss Clara. She ran across the room and launched herself into Clara's arms. Clara caught her, holding her tight, breathing in strawberry shampoo and relief. "Are you okay, sweetheart? Did anyone hurt you?" "No, but I want to go home. I want Daddy and Emma." Ella's voice was small. "The lady said I have to stay with her forever. Is that true?" "Not if I can help it." Clara kissed her forehead, then whispered, "Ella, I need you to be very brave. Can you do that?" Ella nodded. Clara pulled out her phone, making sure it was recording audio in her pocket. Then she raised her voice. "So what's the plan, Dante? Victoria gets the kids and the money. And you get what?" "Revenge against Alexander." Dante's laugh was cold. "I get my life back. Alexander destroyed my company, my reputation. Now I destroy his family. By using a child as leverage. By taking what he values most." Dante poured himself a drink. "He took my empire, so I'll take his heart. Fair trade, wouldn't you say?" "I'd say you're both criminals." Clara kept recording, kept him talking. "Victoria faked a pregnancy to steal from him. You're holding a child hostage. That's kidnapping, extortion. That's business." Victoria's voice came from the bedroom doorway. She emerged in a silk robe, her hair wet. When she saw Clara, her smile was venomous. "I knew you couldn't stay away. Love makes people so predictable. Let Ella go. She's scared. She'll adapt. Children always do." Victoria sat down, crossing her legs. "You know what's funny? Alexander could have avoided all of this. If he'd just paid me properly the first time, if he hadn't tried to be a hero and raise his dead sister's kids, none of this would be happening. So this is punishment for him daring to love his nieces? This is punishment for him being weak." Victoria's eyes glittered. "I gave him a choice, be rich and alone, or be poor and alone. Either way, he loses the girls. Because men like Alexander don't deserve families. They deserve exactly what his father got, a loveless life and an early grave." Clara felt her phone vibrating in her pocket. "Please let that be Patricia with the police." "What about you?" Clara kept her voice steady. "What do you deserve?" "Everything I can take." Victoria stood, moving toward Ella. "Now you've had your 5 minutes. Time to go. I'm not leaving without her. Then you'll both stay." Victoria's mask dropped, revealing the monster underneath. "Dante, call security. Have Miss Bennett removed. And make sure she knows that if she goes to the police, we have enough evidence of Alexander's neglect to ensure he never sees these children again." Dante reached for his phone, and the door burst open. Alexander stood there, flanked by James and 4 police officers. His eyes found Clara first, then Ella, then Victoria. And the expression on his face was pure reckoning. "You were right about one thing, Victoria," he said, his voice deadly calm. "I did have a choice, and I choose to fight." Victoria's face went white. "You can't prove anything." "Oh, I can." Patricia Alvarez strode in behind the police, holding up a tablet. "Because Miss Bennett was smart enough to record your entire confession. Kidnapping, extortion, conspiracy to commit fraud. That's 20 years minimum. You're bluffing." "Am I?" Patricia hit play. Dante's voice filled the room. "He took my empire, so I'll take his heart. Fair trade, wouldn't you say?" Then Victoria's. "Alexander could have avoided all this." Every damning word, perfectly recorded. Victoria lunged for Clara, but the police were faster. They had her in handcuffs before she could reach Ella. "You can't do this," Victoria screamed as they led her away. "I'm her mother. You signed away that right 3 years ago," Alexander said coldly. "And now you'll have plenty of time to regret it." The police took Dante too, still sputtering protests. Patricia followed them out, already on the phone with the DA's office. And then it was just Clara, Alexander, Ella, and James in the sudden quiet. Ella ran to her father. Alexander scooped her up, holding her like he'd never let go, his face buried in her hair. "I'm so sorry, baby. I'm so sorry." "It's okay, Daddy. Miss Clara saved me." Ella looked at Clara over Alexander's shoulder. "She's really brave." Alexander's eyes met Clara's over his daughter's head. In them, she saw gratitude and regret and love and 1,000 apologies. "Yes," he said quietly. "She is. Victoria is arrested. Ella is safe. And Alexander just learned what it means to fight for love. But can he convince Clara to give him another chance?" The ride back to the mansion was quiet. Ella had fallen asleep against Alexander's chest, exhausted from her ordeal. Emma was waiting on the front steps with Mrs. Morrison when they pulled up, and the reunion between the twins was enough to make even James wipe his eyes. But Clara hung back, suddenly unsure of her place in this moment. She'd done what she came to do, saved Ella, stopped Victoria. Now what? Alexander must have sensed her hesitation. After settling both girls with Mrs. Morrison and hot chocolate, he found Clara in the foyer, standing by her abandoned suitcase that someone had brought back inside. "Don't," he said quietly. "Don't what? Don't leave. Don't run. Don't do what I did." Alexander stepped closer, and Clara could see the raw emotion in his face. The fear and hope and desperate love he was finally letting himself feel. "Clara, I was wrong. About everything. Alexander, let me finish. Please." He took a shaky breath. "I spent 3 years convinced that loving people meant losing them. That if I kept everyone at arm's length, I could protect myself from the pain my father felt, the loss Sophia experienced, the betrayal Victoria inflicted. I thought isolation was strength." Clara's throat tightened. "And now I know that isolation is just another word for cowardice." Alexander's voice cracked. "Emma was right. I was hiding. And worse, I was teaching my daughters that love is something to fear instead of something worth fighting for. They're watching us right now, aren't they?" Clara glanced toward the stairs where 2 small faces were definitely not hiding very well behind the banister. Alexander's lips twitched. "Probably. Good." Clara stepped closer. "Then let them see this. Let them see their father being brave." "I don't know how to do this," Alexander admitted. "I don't know how to let someone in without being terrified they'll destroy me. You do it one day at a time. One moment at a time." Clara reached up and touched his face. "You do it by choosing trust over fear. By believing that not everyone is Victoria. By accepting that yes, love is scary and risky and sometimes it hurts, but it's also the only thing that makes life worth living." Alexander covered her hand with his. "What if I mess it up? What if I push you away again when things get hard? Then I'll push back harder." Clara smiled through her tears. "I'm not fragile, Alexander. I don't need you to protect me from the world or from yourself. I just need you to let me stand beside you. Can you do that?" For a long moment, Alexander said nothing. Then he dropped to one knee, and Clara's breath caught. "What are you doing?" "Something I should have done the first day you walked into this house and made my daughters smile." Alexander pulled out a small velvet box. When had he even gotten that? And opened it to reveal a ring that caught the light like captured stars. "Clara Bennett, I'm a mess. I'm damaged and stubborn, and I still don't fully trust that you won't eventually realize I'm not worth the trouble. But I'm also completely in love with you, with your courage and your heart, and the way you fought for my family like they were your own. Because they are, aren't they? Yours, I mean." Clara was crying openly now. "Yes. God, yes, they're mine. You're all mine. Then make it official. Marry me. Not because it'll look good for custody. Victoria's going to prison, and there's no custody fight left. Marry me because I want to spend every day learning how to be brave enough to deserve you. Marry me because Emma and Ella need someone who'll teach them what real love looks like. Marry me because—" "Yes," Clara interrupted, laughing and crying. "Yes, yes, yes, you impossible man. Yes." Alexander slipped the ring on her finger with shaking hands, then stood and kissed her like she was air and he'd been drowning. Clara melted into him, vaguely aware of squealing from the stairs and Mrs. Morrison's happy sobs and James whooping. When they broke apart, Emma and Ella came thundering down the stairs. "Does this mean Miss Clara gets to stay forever?" Emma demanded. "Forever and ever," Alexander confirmed. "Does this mean she'll be our mom?" Ella asked quietly, hopefully. Clara knelt down to their level. "If you want me to be. I know I can't replace your real mom." "She wasn't our real mom," Emma said matter-of-factly. "She was Daddy's sister. Mrs. Morrison told us when we asked why we don't remember her." Clara looked at Alexander in surprise. He nodded. "We had a long talk this morning. About Sophia, about Victoria, about the truth. They deserve to know. Our real mom died being a hero," Ella said softly. "She saved someone from a car accident and got hurt. Daddy said she was brave and kind, and she loved us very much. Just like Miss Clara," Emma added. "So if you want to be our mom now, that's okay. Our first mom would probably like you." Clara's heart shattered and reformed all at once. She pulled both girls into her arms. "I would be honored to be your mom. And we'll make sure you always remember your first mom. Okay? We'll tell stories about her and look at pictures and keep her memory alive. Promise," Ella whispered. "I promise." Alexander joined the embrace, wrapping his arms around all 3 of his girls. and for the first time in 3 years, his house felt like a home. Later that evening, after the girls were asleep and the adrenaline had finally worn off, Clara found herself in Alexander's study, watching him delete emails and reschedule meetings. "What are you doing?" she asked. "Clearing my schedule for the next 2 weeks." Alexander looked up with a smile that still took her breath away. "I'm taking my family on vacation. Somewhere with beaches and no cell service and absolutely no billionaire drama." "Your family," Clara repeated, testing the words. They tasted like honey. "My family," Alexander confirmed. He crossed the room and pulled her close. "I have one more thing to tell you. About Victoria and the money." Clara tensed. "What about it?" "I'm not pressing charges for the original theft. The kidnapping and extortion, yes, she'll go to prison for that. But the 40 million she stole years ago? I'm letting it go." At Clara's confused look, he explained. "Because holding on to that anger, that need for revenge, it's what kept me frozen for 3 years. I don't want to be that person anymore. I want to be the person Emma called brave. The person you believed I could be." Clara's eyes filled with tears again. "Who are you and what have you done with the Ice King of Manhattan?" Alexander laughed, and the sound was free and genuine. He melted. "Turns out all it took was a nanny with a criminal father, a hell of a right hook against kidnappers, and enough courage to save his sorry ass when he was too scared to save himself." "I didn't save you," Clara protested. "We saved each other. Then let's make a deal." Alexander touched his forehead to hers. "From now on, we face everything together. No more pushing away. No more walls. No more running," Clara finished. "No more running. No more running," Alexander agreed. They sealed the promise with a kiss that tasted like new beginnings and hard-won hope, and the kind of love that survives everything because it chooses to every single day. Upstairs, through the baby monitor Alexander kept on his desk, they heard Emma's whisper. "Ella, I think Daddy finally figured it out." "Figured what out?" "That being loved isn't scary. It's magic." Clara and Alexander looked at each other and laughed. The kind of laughter that comes from surviving a war and finding joy on the other side. "Smart kid," Clara said. "She gets it from her mother," Alexander replied, and Clara knew he meant both Sophia and her. Both of them. The next morning, Patricia Alvarez called with updates. Victoria and Dante were both being held without bail. The DA was building an airtight case. The press had turned on Victoria viciously once the truth came out. The faked pregnancy, the theft, the kidnapping. Alexander's reputation was not only restored but enhanced. He was being called a devoted father and victim of elaborate con. Clara's father called too. She answered, and his voice was gruff. "The lawyer helped?" "She was perfect." "Thank you, Dad." A long pause. "Your mother would be proud of you. Standing up for those kids. Fighting for your family." Clara's throat tightened. Maybe we could talk sometime. Really talk." "I'd like that, Clara. I'd like that a lot." Her father's voice softened. "And Clara, that man who proposed to you? He's a lucky bastard." "I'm the lucky one, Dad." "Then you both are. That's how it should be." They talked for another 20 minutes. The longest conversation they'd had in 4 years. It wasn't perfect. There was still hurt and distance to overcome. But it was a start. Emma appeared in the doorway as Clara hung up. "Miss Clara, can we call you Mom now? Or do we have to wait until the wedding?" Clara's heart soared. "You can call me whatever feels right, sweetheart." "Then come on, Mom. Dad's burning breakfast again, and Ella says we should call the fire department." Clara laughed and followed her daughter, to the kitchen where Alexander was indeed creating a disaster zone out of pancakes, and Ella was providing commentary like a sports announcer. "And the batter goes flying. Oh no, it's on the ceiling. This is a pancake catastrophe, folks." Mrs. Morrison stood to the side, watching with fond exasperation and making no move to help. When she saw Clara, she winked. This was her life now. Chaos and laughter and love so big it terrified and thrilled her in equal measure. A man who was learning to be vulnerable. 2 girls who called her mom. A family she'd fought for and won. The evaluator came that afternoon, a formality now that Victoria was in custody. She spent 3 hours with them, watching Alexander read stories in funny voices, seeing Emma and Ella drag Clara into a tea party, observing the easy affection and genuine joy. At the end, she closed her notebook and smiled. "Mr. Hale, I don't think I've ever seen a more loving home. Whatever my report says, It's going to recommend that these children stay exactly where they are. Alexander shook her hand, and after she left, he pulled Clara and the girls into a group hug. We did it. We actually did it. Did you ever doubt? Clara asked. Every second, Alexander admitted. But I did it anyway. Because of you. That night, after the girls were asleep and the house was quiet, Alexander and Clara sat on the balcony overlooking Central Park. The city glittered below them like scattered diamonds. I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop, Alexander admitted quietly. For you to realize this life is too complicated, too much baggage, too. Alexander. Clara took his hand. I'm not going anywhere. Not when things get hard. Not when you have nightmares about Victoria. Not when the girls have bad days or the press digs into my past or your company faces problems. I'm here. Always. How can you be so sure? Because I chose you. Every day, every moment, I choose you. Clara smiled. And tomorrow I'll choose you again. And the day after that. That's what love is. Not a feeling that might fade, but a choice you make over and over until it becomes as natural as breathing. Alexander pulled her close. I choose you too. Today, tomorrow, forever. They sat in the quiet, watching the city sleep. Two people who'd fought their way through darkness and found light on the other side. And somewhere in the house, Emma and Ella slept peacefully, secure in the knowledge that their family, their real, chosen, fought-for family, was finally complete. Victoria is defeated. The family is whole. And love has won. But there's one more chapter left, because the best endings are really just new beginnings. 6 months later, Clara stood in front of the mirror in what used to be the guest suite, and was now officially our bedroom. Hers and Alexander's. The wedding dress was simple but elegant, cream silk that flowed like water, with delicate lace at the shoulders that had belonged to Sophia. Your sister would want you to wear something of hers, Mrs. Morrison had said when she'd brought out the carefully preserved lace. She always said her wedding day was the happiest of her life. She'd want that for you too. Now, as Clara fastened the last button, Emma and Ella burst through the door in matching flower girl dresses, their excitement barely contained. Mom, you look like a princess. Emma twirled. A real one, not the fake ones in movies. Can we see Dad's face when he sees you? Ella asked eagerly. James says he's going to cry, and we've never seen Daddy cry happy tears before. Clara laughed, pulling both girls close and careful not to wrinkle their dresses. Your dad's not going to cry. Want a bet? Mrs. Morrison appeared in the doorway with a knowing smile. That man cried when Emma lost her first tooth. He's definitely crying today. She was right, of course. 20 minutes later, when Clara walked down the aisle in the mansion's garden, transformed into a wonderland of white roses and twinkling lights, Alexander took one look at her, and his eyes immediately filled with tears. Told you, Ella whispered loudly, making the small gathering of friends and family laugh. The ceremony was intimate. James stood as best man, wiping his own eyes more than once. Patricia Alvarez was there, having become an unlikely friend over the past months. Even Clara's father attended via video call from the prison's visitor center. The first time she'd seen his face in years, and though it was bittersweet, his smile when she said, I do, was genuine. But it was Alexander's vows that destroyed everyone. Clara, he began, his voice thick with emotion. 6 months ago, I was a man living in a fortress of my own making. I'd convinced myself that isolation was strength, that walls were protection. Then you walked into my life with your impossible optimism and your fierce heart, and you didn't just knock down those walls. You showed me they were never keeping me safe. They were keeping me from living. He took her hands, tears streaming down his face now without shame. You taught my daughters what unconditional love looks like. You taught me what courage really means. Not the absence of fear, but the choice to love anyway, to fight anyway, to believe anyway. His voice cracked. I don't deserve you, but I promise to spend every day trying to be the man you see when you look at me. The man Emma and Ella believe I am. The man who's brave enough to choose love over fear, every single time. There wasn't a dry eye in the garden. Clara's own vows were simpler but no less powerful. Alexander, you gave me a family when I thought I'd never have one. You gave me a home when I was still searching. You gave me your heart when you were terrified it would break again. I promise to guard that heart like the treasure it is. To stand beside you in every battle. To remind you, every single day, that you are worth staying for. That you are worth fighting for. That you are and always will be enough. When they kissed, Emma and Ella cheered so loudly they drowned out the small orchestra. The reception was a blur of joy. Dancing in the garden, Emma and Ella, helping cut the cake by getting frosting everywhere. James giving a toast that was equal parts hilarious and heartfelt. Mrs. Morrison getting misty-eyed when Alexander thanked her for being the grandmother my girls always needed. But Clara's favorite moment came late in the evening, when most guests had left and the twins had finally crashed on a garden bench, still in their flower girl dresses, sleeping in a pile like puppies. Alexander pulled her close for a slow dance under the fairy lights, and Clara rested her head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat. "Happy," he murmured against her hair. Deliriously. Clara looked up at him. "You." "Terrified," Alexander admitted with a soft laugh. "I keep waiting to wake up and find out this was all a dream. That I'm still alone in that empty mansion, still convinced I was safer without you. Well, you're stuck with me now. Legally binding and everything." Clara showed him her ring. "No takebacks." "Good." Alexander kissed her forehead. "Because I have something to tell you, and I'm hoping you won't run screaming." Clara's heart skipped. "That sounds ominous. I've been thinking about the company, about how much time I spend at the office, away from the girls. Away from you." Alexander took a breath. "James has been wanting to buy a larger stake for years. What if I sold him controlling interest? Stayed on as chairman, but let him run the day-to-day operations?" Clara pulled back to look at him fully. "Are you serious? I've spent the last 3 years building an empire and nearly lost my family because of it. I don't want to be my father, dying at 50 with nothing but money to show for it." Alexander's eyes were clear and certain. "I want to be present. I want to coach Emma's soccer team when she starts next month. I want to help Ella with the science projects she's already planning. I want to have breakfast with my wife every morning instead of leaving before dawn." "Your wife," Clara repeated, warmth flooding through her. "I don't think I'll ever get tired of hearing that." "Get used to it, Mrs. Hale." Alexander grinned. That full, genuine smile that still made her heart flutter. "Because I plan on saying it at least 1,000 times a day." "Only 1,000? Clara teased. "I expected more from a billionaire." "Fine. 1,000,000 times a day." He kissed her softly. "Starting now. My wife. My wife. My wife." Clara laughed against his lips. "You're ridiculous." "I'm happy," Alexander corrected. "There's a difference." They swayed together as the night deepened, the fairy lights twinkling like earthbound stars, their daughters sleeping peacefully nearby, the future stretching out before them full of promise and possibility. "Hey," Clara said suddenly, "did you ever find out how Victoria got those photos of me with my father?" Private investigator she hired 6 months before she showed up. She'd been planning this entire thing. Alexander's jaw tightened briefly, then relaxed. "But it doesn't matter now. She's serving 15 years, Dante got 12. And the judge made it clear that if she ever tries to contact the girls again, she'll face additional charges." "Good." Clara paused. "Do you think she ever actually wanted them back? The twins?" Alexander was quiet for a moment. "I think Victoria wanted what she's always wanted, control and money. The girls were just leverage." He looked at Emma and Ella, sleeping peacefully. "But they're safe now. We're all safe." "We are," Clara agreed. Then softer. "Thank you." "For what?" "For being brave enough to let me in. For fighting for us. For choosing love even when it scared you." Clara touched his face. "For giving me the family I always dreamed of. Thank you for not giving up on me when I was being an idiot." Alexander caught her hand and kissed her palm. "For fighting for my daughters when I was too paralyzed with fear. For showing me what real courage looks like." A sleepy voice interrupted them. "Are you guys going to be this mushy forever?" Emma had woken up and was watching them with one eye open, her face scrunched in amused disgust. "Absolutely," Clara and Alexander said in unison. "Gross," Emma declared, but she was smiling. "Can we have pancakes for breakfast tomorrow? With chocolate chips?" "It's your dad's turn to cook," Clara said innocently. Emma's face fell. "Oh no, maybe we should have cereal." "Hey," Alexander protested. "I've gotten better." "You burned water last week," Ella mumbled, also half awake now. "That was one time." "Twice," both girls corrected. Clara burst out laughing, and Alexander joined in, and soon all 4 of them were giggling in the garden under the stars, a family bound not by biology but by choice, not by obligation but by love. 1 year later, Clara sat in the garden where they'd been married, watching Emma and Ella play with their baby brother, Alexander James Hale, who had his father's gray eyes and his mother's bright smile, and an impressive set of lungs he used frequently. Alexander emerged from the house with a tray of lemonade and sandwiches, sitting beside her with a contented sigh. "Remember when this garden was perfectly manicured?" he asked, surveying the toys scattered across the lawn. "Remember when you cared?" Clara countered, leaning into him. "Fair point." Alexander kissed her temple. "I got a call from Patricia today. Victoria's parole hearing was denied. She'll serve the full sentence." Clara nodded. She'd stopped thinking about Victoria months ago. The woman was a ghost from another life, powerless and far away. "And your father?" Alexander asked gently. "You said his release date is coming up?" 3 months. Clara took a breath. "He wants to meet you. And the kids. If that's okay." "Of course it's okay. He's family." Alexander squeezed her hand. "We all have pasts, Clara. What matters is who we choose to be now. When did you become so wise?" "When I married a woman who taught me that forgiveness isn't weakness, it's freedom." Alexander watched their children play. Besides, the girls deserved to know all their grandparents, even the complicated ones. Baby AJ let out a wail, and both Emma and Ella came running. "Mom! Dad! AJ needs you." Clara and Alexander stood together, moving as the team they'd become. Efficient and loving and occasionally chaotic, but always, always united. As they reached their children, Emma tugging on Clara's hand and Ella explaining in rapid detail what AJ needed, Alexander caught Clara's eye over their baby's head. "Best decision I ever made," he mouthed. "Firing me." Clara mouthed back with a grin. "Hiring you back," Alexander corrected. That night, after the kids were all asleep and the house was finally quiet, Clara found Alexander in his study. But instead of working late like he used to, he was looking at photos on his computer. Their wedding, the twins' 6th birthday party, AJ's first smile. "Come to bed," Clara said softly. Alexander closed the laptop immediately. "Thought you'd never ask." As they walked upstairs hand in hand, passing the rooms where their children slept safely, Clara thought about the journey that had brought them here. The fear, the fights, the near losses and hard-won victories. The choice to stay when leaving would have been easier. The decision to love when walls would have been safer. "No regrets?" Alexander asked as they reached their bedroom door, as if reading her mind. Clara looked at this man who'd learned to be vulnerable, who'd chosen courage over comfort, who'd let her love him despite every instinct telling him to run. She thought about their children, their family, their beautifully imperfect life. "Not a single one," she said. And she meant it, because some stories don't end with happily ever after. They end with happily ever after was just the beginning. And for Clara and Alexander Hale, it was. The end. Thank you for going on this journey with me. If this story touched your heart, moved you, or made you believe in love again, please drop a comment telling me your favorite part. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel because I have so many more stories to tell you. Stories of love and courage and families that fight for each other. Remember, real love isn't perfect. It's messy and scary and complicated, but it's also worth fighting for. Every single time. Until the next story. Choose love, choose courage, and choose to stay.